On The Good, the Bad, and the Unknown. Ethel Merman becomes a madam, falls in love with a horse, and tries to keep up with the times. Roll the intro. Hello, boys and girls. This is your old friend RJ City, and I'm back with another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Unknown. And today is a day I've been feeling it, and we all have been feeling it. We need a dose of what's known as Mermania, because my subject today and tonight, or this afternoon, whenever you're watching this, is the great Ethel Merman, and of the stage and of the screen, various screens. And actually, I will say this first. Her name was originally, she was born Ethel Zimmerman. But when she got into show business on the marquee, Zimmerman was too long of a name. So she took the Zim off and became simply Ethel Merman. And when you think of classic Broadway divas, to me, the first one that comes to mind is Ethel Merman. And I feel like everyone else follows in her footsteps. I first saw her, you learn about these people backwards when you're of a certain age. I first saw her on The Muppet Show. She was fantastic. And I also saw her on Larry King. And it was those two episodes. I was like, who is this bombastic older woman? I have to go follow her career backwards. And that is what I've done. So let us go through the good, the bad, and the unknown of Ethel Merman. So the good for me would be a 1953 film called Call Me Madam. It was filmed in 1953, as I said, but it's based on the musical by the same name. There are songs. The music was done by the great Irving Berlin, and it also stars Donald O'Connor, who actually claimed that his best dancing is in this film. That's another good thing about this film, is that it's well danced by Donald O'Connor. So, you come for the Merman, but I want you to stay for the Donald O'Connor dancing. He was fantastic. Ethel Merman also won a Golden Globe for this performance in the Best Actress in a Musical or a Comedy. And she did this on the stage, so, when it comes to the film version, obviously she's going to be very well versed. She plays Sally Adams, a wealthy socialite who becomes an ambassador to Lichtenberg. I guess we can all say it like that, Lichtenberg. And they ended up wanting money from the U.S. and Harry Truman because it's very political. And then there's an arranged marriage and a bunch of comedic follies. And, of course, a lot of singing and dancing. This is why I like it. Because it's, first of all, relatively faithful to the stage musical. So if you like the musical, I would generally... It's not like a Cats reboot or anything like that, or that horrible Phantom of the Opera movie with Gerard Butler. If you like the stage musical, you would like this. Book-wise, it's very similar, number one. Number two, Ethel Merman's in that weird category where a lot of the stuff she's best known for was on the Broadway stage where there are no cameras or recordings of that stuff. And sometimes it's hard for the stage performance, the Broadway performance, to translate to a movie or on screen in general and still capture that same thing. You hear that she's a dynamic performer, and then you see her on TV, she's just loud. And you're like, what the hell is this? Well, maybe if you're sitting in the balcony, you could appreciate it more. But when you're watching it on TV, it doesn't make any sense. However, I think this is a very good performance of hers, and it's indicative of the talent and dynamic and charm that she would have had on stage. So I feel like you can watch this movie and understand why she was so beloved on Broadway. The only knock, and the reason I feel like this movie isn't a runaway hit, or the musical itself isn't so known, considering, Merman, O'Connor, Irving Berlin, is because the songs, not that the songs are bad, but they don't have like that one runaway hit. Like, a lot of people don't even realize There's No Business Like Show Business comes from the musical Annie Get Your Gun. A bunch of songs come from that. Nobody knows. A lot of those great timeless musicals have that one song that hits the mainstream and takes on a life of its own away from the musical, and that boosts the musical. I think that's what Call Me Madam is missing, because I don't think it's in the pantheon of like amazing musicals. As a movie, I think it's very good. As an Ethel Merman performance, I think it's one of her best. But in the grand scheme of the musicals, I feel like it falls short. Not that it's bad, it's just not a runaway hit I think you would need. So that is the good. So now let's talk about the bad. Ethel Merman played a little character on TV named Lola Lasagna. And that character was in a two-parter double episode of the old Batman 66 show. It's not actually the original Batman. There was a TV series before that, but this is perhaps the one that is certainly best known, with Adam West and Burt Ward and Cesar Romero and Burgess Meredith and Julie Newmar. Who am I missing? Frank Gorshin. Nevertheless, so she's in two episodes, but it's one of those cliffhangers where they set everything up in the first one and then they pay it off in the second. The Penguin, played by Burgess Meredith, teams up with Lola Lasagna. Who she really is not quite sure. How he knows her, also not quite sure. But nevertheless, as all great Batman villains are, they're in complete cahoots. This is the scheme that they pull. The Penguin steals these priceless parasols. They're those, colorful, fancy umbrellas. And he holds them ransom against Gotham. He stole them from the Gotham City Library. I guess they were artifacts, and the city really needed them badly because the city pays the ransom money. Gotham gives the Penguin 10 grand for these priceless umbrellas. Please release them. Also, Lola Lasagna has an affinity for the parasols, and like every scene she's in, she has like a different umbrella on her shoulder. So, the Penguin takes this money and decides to bet it on a rigged horse race. And now I want to commend him for, this is a diabolical scheme. He's in cahoots with Lola, and yet no one's really getting harmed. You know what I mean? This isn't that dangerous or that violent. It's just about the money, but it's still very devious, which is nice. So he takes the favorite horse, whose name poetically enough is Parasol, and he disguises him as an unknown horse named Bumbershoot that he bets all his money on, and then he paints a glue factory horse to run as Parasol. So even though it's not violent or threatening, there is definitely some animal abuse involved. Perfect plan, in my opinion. And if you two can pull this off, you're doing a great job, Lola and Penguin. However, they are thwarted when Bruce Wayne enters his horse in the race, ridden by Batgirl. And the name of this horse is Waynebo. W-A-Y-N-E, as in Bruce Wayne, and then Beau, B-E-A-U. I could do a whole episode just on that name. It is so beautiful, it is so poetic, and more people need to hear about it. So, this sounds like an amazing Batman episode, and it kind of is. So what is my issue? Why is Ethel Merman's role of Lola Lasagna considered not that good? Yeah. Because she's just kind of there for no reason. It was like she happened to be hanging out on set that day, and they were like, let's write her in. She has no real backstory. She has no real reason for being there. Obviously, she's not strong enough to be there on her own because she relies so heavily on the Penguin. So that part is very bizarre. And she doesn't do anything. She doesn't do anything special. She doesn't have any special powers, or isn't a freak in any way. She just seems to be hanging out. I mean, if she was, maybe boning the Penguin left and right, maybe that would be something to go on. She just carries parasols. That's it. She's perhaps one of the most ineffective Batman villains of all time. And to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure that she's fully in on the joke of this. It's very bizarre because she plays it so big anyway that she could have been taking it absolutely 100% seriously, and you still can't tell. A little interesting tidbit on her backstory. She briefly mentions that her former husband goes by the name Luigi Lasagna, but of course he's never seen or heard from again. So as a Batman episode, it's campy, fun, but in the grand scheme of great Batman villains, and really, if they put concerted effort into a villain character befitting of Ethel Merman, she would have nailed it. Let's get that right out of the gate, because there's other guys like Milton Berle, became Louis the Lilac, Victor Buono, became King Tut, And I just feel like it was a real missed opportunity, and it's wasted, and it bothers me, and that's why it's on my bad list. So moving on now, from the good to the bad, and now the unknown. The unknown is also, I have to say, very, very bad and good and weird in its own way. It is the 1979 Ethel Merman disco album. It's an actual record. It's not a movie. It's not a TV show. But dear Lord, does it pack a punch. Vinyl copies are collector's items now. It was released on CD. It's available if you're on Spotify or YouTube or whatever. It is there. But it was quite a rarity, I guess. Small circulation printing. Here's the deal. Ethel Merman recorded 14 songs for the Ethel Merman disco album. Clever name, by the way. Although only 7 of the songs were released on the finished record. Each of the songs was recorded in only one take and arranged vocally the way she always recorded them, with disco instrumentation added later as a backtrack. Okay? So what happened is, disco obviously was a craze in the 70s, but this is 1979, so it's got to be waning, because you got to think by 81, disco is pretty much dead. So this seems to be like the last legs of disco. However, everyone wants to cash in. There's a bunch of novelty songs. There's stuff like Kung Fu Fighting and Disco Duck and all that kind of business. Fine. Someone gets a hold of Ethel Merman and says, hey, Merm, let's really try to cash in here. She doesn't want to do the work. She obviously doesn't want to have anything to do with disco music, and I kind of don't blame her. It's a little beneath her, the dancing and the moving and the things of that nature. So what she does is say, listen, I'm going to record my classic songs the way I've always recorded them, and then you guys can futz around with it in post. And that's what she does. In 2002, Finsworth Alley Records acquired the rights to release the album on CD. The CD release contains 1 bonus track, but there are no plans yet to release the other 6 tracks. So just to confirm, she recorded 14 songs, okay? 7 were released on the record, and then 1 more, so we're at 8. This is very exciting. And then the other 6 are in a vault somewhere. I don't know if anyone has them, but someone really, really should release them. It's about time, don't you think? Here are the songs. There's No Business Like Show Business. Again, Irving Berlin, nice callback. Everything's Coming Up Roses. I Get a Kick Out of You. Something for the Boys. Some People. Alexander's Ragtime Band. It's when you know you're in trouble. You're doing a disco song about a different musical style completely. I Got Rhythm. And they say it's wonderful is the bonus track on the reissued CD, which is also an Irving Berlin song. Here's the thing. They take these songs, they're normally fairly short, these songs, but they stretch them out, so she'll say a lyric, and then you'll hear this disco beat for a while, and it's almost like it's been remixed over it, because they chopped it up. She has no control over the musicianship. So you have songs like, I don't know, Everything's Coming Up Roses is 6 minutes and 30 seconds of Ethel singing a song she's already known for. Everyone knows how it goes, and there's a generic disco beat behind it. So generally speaking, she ignores the disco beat, and she just does what she does. Nevertheless, it's something that if you haven't heard it, you need to hear it, because your life will never be the same. So just to recap on our dose of Mermania, the good was Call Me Madam, the bad was Batman's Lola Lasagna, and the unknown, which you cannot forget, is the Ethel Merman disco album. I am RJ City, and this is what I've chosen to do with my life.
Guests of the RJ City Show, subscribe to his channel, follow him on social media, and buy his t-shirts at prowrestlingtees.com/RJ City.